Good morning. Welcome back to day 2 of the Innovation and Opportunity Conference brought to you by NASA's SBIR, STTR program. Again, for those of you that weren't here yesterday, I'm Dr. Quentin Bond. I am a Center Technology Lead at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center for the SBIR program, and I am joined with my partner, my colleague, my partner in crime, the Mike Benji. Mike, you want to give a wave? All right, so we hope you had a really good night's rest. Today we have an action-packed day with information, again, to help you be successful in our program. The goal of this conference is what we call transition or infusion. Again, we want you to develop technologies that can be useful to NASA, meaning that we want these technologies to be infused in our missions, research, and flight projects. In addition to that, we want you to be able to commercialize these technologies. Yesterday was an action-packed day. We were really impressed with the feedback of all the firms. People participated in the polls. I want to encourage you to keep that same vigor throughout today. It makes it fun because everything is so challenging virtually. Now, today was an awesome day. Yesterday was an awesome day. But, Mike is back. Mike, you want to give him a wave? I think they didn't see you last time.
Oh, he already saw me? I think they're all
okay. Well, it was good. All right, got it. It was black on my end, so I just wanted to make sure, okay? Anyway, yesterday was an awesome day. Everybody was so engaging. Today will be even better. We're going to start off with a blast up. That's my kind of rendition of a lunch. We have astronaut Suni Williams today, and she's going to be talking about why she's so excited about everything we have going on at NASA, why your involvement as a small business, as a research institution, as an entrepreneur is critical to the agency's mission. And obviously, she's going to share some cool stories of her experience in space, not something that you want to miss, so we're glad you're on here early. Mike.
Definitely. And good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Benji from Kennedy Space Center. So there's a lot of different space centers that make up NASA, and each one's contributing their own specialty. Most people know KSC because of all the launch operations happening all the time, or the EGS program that supports the Space Launch System. But in addition to all that, there's always been some R&D teams at KSC who kept their eye on the problems that we're going to face when we go back to the moon. And in the Apollo days, we had the lunar test track out back. And these days we do things like ISRU, or we test lunar robot designs in the SwampWorks regolith bin. Our focus here has always been on finding the operational improvements to improve the designs, make them better. And if we're successful, then the lunar surface operations are easier once they start up again in 2024, which is when NASA's planned date is set for the first woman to arrive back at the moon. The moon is important to me personally because if you can sustain yourself on the moon, then you're ready to go just about anywhere. And of course, getting to the moon requires a whole lot of tech development, and that's just the lunar content. So yesterday, you heard about the Space Technology Mission Director and Associate Administrator. You heard him Jim Reuter talk about where the space technology is headed. And this morning, you'll hear more from the 3 other directorates, the Aeronautics Research, Human Exploration and Operations, and Science. And while they all contribute to NASA's missions, each one's got their own strategic priorities and initiatives, and you're going to hear more on that from them shortly.
All right, great, Mike. That's really a really good overview of what we plan to go over, some of the things that we plan to cover today. But before we do that, I think you know by now, for those of you that were here yesterday and for those of you that's new, we're doing everything we can to engage with you all. So we want to do a quick poll just to kind of get some feedback from you. This is how we make this conference beneficial to both parties, by hearing from everyone. So we're going to do a quick poll, all right, to try to get you warmed up for a very engaging day. And one quick reminder for the audience, there is a email icon. It looks like an envelope on the bottom of the agenda page. So if you run into any technical issues, just send us the email. Just click on that link. It'll open up an option to send us an email. So let's turn to the first question. For those of you that were here yesterday, I know you've seen this before, but we want to know who's on the line. We want to see who's here. So we got a quick question about, okay, what is your position right now in your SBIR, STTR journey? All right, so where are you? So A, the poll should come up, so just scroll to the bottom of the page. You should see the poll. A is phase 0. You're just getting started in your SBIR, STTR journey. Phase 1, you've been recently awarded, or you have been awarded an SBIR STTR award, and you want to make the best of the experience. That's why you're here. Phase 2 and beyond, meaning that you're a little bit seasoned, but you want to make sure you leverage all the opportunities and connections that this conference brings. D, you're a NASA representative. You're just here to help and connect with small businesses. E, I'm not a small business. I'm not a research institution. I'm not a NASA representative, but I support the program. And F, I don't know. I like this one. I just clicked on the link. I saw NASA, so I decided to join. So these are the options. The poll should come up soon. So please participate. My words are getting slurred here. Please participate. Engage with us. We want to see who's here. All right. So the poll should come up shortly. All right. Let's see. So, Mike, this looks very similar to what we saw yesterday. Phase 0, about half of our firms are on the line, or firms and research institutions are from Phase 0, about 48%. And we have a pretty even spread between the Phase 1 firms and research institutions. Phase 1, you may have just won one award. Phase 2 and beyond, you're a little bit seasoned. NASA representatives have a kind of a pretty even spread with the NASA representatives. And we have some people here that just support the program. All right. Mike, you want to take the second question?
Sure. Okay. Second and final question for everybody this morning. Are you planning on attending the networking session? A, yes, I plan to attend on networking, or B, no, I do not plan on attending the networking. We'll wait a moment for the results to pop up, I guess. You know, we need some interesting hold music for when we're waiting for the results. I think that would be
I know. I was thinking, I was wondering, should we have like the what is the Wheel of Fortune?
Okay. And then of course, Quentin, we've learned not to actually influence the results by saying that something's different than something else, right? So,
right. We got some smart Alex on the line that go and just destroy that.
So I think it's.
But I like it. I like the interaction.
I think it settled out at about 70-30, so 70% plan to attend the networking, which, by the way, is really fantastic news. There's a lot that you can get out of that. Make sure that you're getting everybody else's perspective on the information that we're putting out. It will really help.
And
yeah, go ahead, Quentin.
Well, I was just thinking, speaking of networking, we got about 2 minutes before the next session. I would like to give firms, or small business, research institutions, an opportunity in the chat to plug your business. Now, we didn't plan this. This is something we're kind of doing impromptu, but we want you to put the name of your business, all right, or the name of your research institution, or the name of your firm, and 3 things that you feel makes you better than any other business, any other firm, any other research institution. Or basically, what are your 3 areas that you feel like you're really good? And in parallel, as you put this in the chat,
should they aim for 3 keywords? 3 keywords, so we're not like two
3 keywords. Yeah, I mean, 3 keywords. Anything they want to put. You know, you could put 3 keywords, or you could say, I don't know, we do ASICs, or we do mission critical, or something. You know, anything. But I want it to be 3 words to kind of make it kind of challenging. And in parallel, we want the firms and the research institutions to start looking at those keywords and, you know, start looking for people that you want to connect with, okay? Start looking for other firms, other small businesses. This is all about leveraging partnerships. This is all about communication. This is all about working together. And so this is our little pre-networking for the last minute we have before we run into our session. And don't forget, on in the agenda, there's a place to drop your virtual business card. So don't forget to drop your virtual business card. I virtually see, I see the names of the businesses coming in. Thank you all for participating. Keep dropping it there. Keep looking for people to collaborate with. You know, many of us that you see on the other side of this line, we did research and development before we came over to SBIR. So we know how important it is to form partnerships, okay? I think our time is about up. Mike, anything else before we switch to the next segment?
No, I think it's a great idea. It's good to see everything, all the company info flowing there. So with that, I think we're probably ready to get started with the next portion. Please help me welcome astronaut Suni Williams for some opening remarks. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you in a bit.
All right.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to day 2 of the Innovation and Opportunity Conference. I'm honored to have NASA astronaut Sunita Williams here with us today to talk about how and why your work matters to all of the incredible things she and her fellow astronauts are doing. Suni was selected as an astronaut by NASA in 1998 and is a veteran of 2 space missions. She is currently training for the first post-certification mission of Boeing's Starliner spacecraft, the 2nd crewed flight from that vehicle, and her 3rd long-duration mission aboard the International Space Station. Suni and her crewmates are working closely with Boeing to develop their new spacecraft systems, which will provide round-trip crew transportation services to the International Space Station, and along with SpaceX's Crew Dragon, return the ability to launch humans into space from U.S. soil. Prior to NASA, Suni served in the U.S. Navy, during which she completed overseas deployments to the Mediterranean, Red Sea, and the Persian Gulf. Suni received her bachelor's degree in physical science from the U.S. Naval Academy and a master's degree in engineering management from Florida Institute of Technology. Amongst her many accomplishments are some fun in-space firsts. She ran the first marathon in space when she completed the Boston Marathon on Center in 2007. And then in 2012, she completed the first triathlon in space. Welcome, Suni.
Thanks, Bethany. It's great to be here with everyone. It's just a pleasure to talk to folks who have innovative and amazing ideas.
Thanks. So Suni, I'm curious, and I know many in our audience are as well, so I want to start with maybe an obvious question. What's it actually like to go into space? Do you have any memorable tidbits you can share with our audience?
Sure. I mean, it is really that oh wow situation. I mean, everything from the launch, floating in space for the first time, seeing our amazing planet. In my case, I got to do a couple spacewalks, and then, you know, the entry through the atmosphere coming back. It's surreal. Sometimes I have to pinch myself and, you know, wonder if I really did that when I see my fellow up there. But, you know, it's a day-to-day thing also. It's that, oh, wow, but it's also what you do every day. And what you do every day is totally capitalized on by really amazing experiments, innovations that occur that we can take advantage of here on Earth, that we need to take advantage of when we're in space. So, you know, it's a job. It's a pretty amazing job to get to do the commute to get there. And it's a pretty amazing place to do that job. And like I mentioned, it helps when there are a team of people here on Earth that are helping you make that trip successful every time.
Yeah, sure. So our program, SBIR program, has funded a number of technologies that have made their way into NASA missions, including on the ISS. A few examples, SBIR provided awards for a universal battery charger and a deployable vegetable production system that were both used on ISS during the time that you've been there. You've worked for NASA for over 20 years and have logged 322 days in space, which is really remarkable and gives you the 2nd all-time record on the U.S. endurance list for a female astronaut. So my question around that is, you know, having interacted with so much cutting-edge NASA technology, is why is it so important that the agency continues to innovate and improve on the technologies we use in our space missions?
Yeah, you know, space is a pretty unique place. I sort of mentioned it as a job, but the things that we do on Earth, we could be pretty satisfied with how we do things and like have a hard time trying to figure out what would make it that much better. Whereas in space, I think it makes people think out of the box. I mean, you have to do stuff, you know, as we had on my last mission, an aquarium up in space to look at bone density of these fish that we could see through, that they were transparent. So, okay, that sounds like a very simple concept, but how do you actually make an aquarium in space? I mean, it's a very obvious example that it makes people really have to think outside the box. How would I do this? If I want that experiment to be successful and I want it to be in space, how do I make it so the water, you know, it can't be poured in? You have to like suck the bubbles out. Or how are you going to feed the fish? You can't just pour it into them. You know, you have to have some other methodology to feed them. And so, like I said, this is a very obvious and simple example, but everything that has to do with space is, with humans, is living and working in space. We have to figure out a way to do that. And it makes people think a little bit more. It's just a stimulus to make people think a little bit more out of the box. And small companies have a that brain power to be able to do that. And we are very thankful for that up there, because we have a lot of amazing experiments that are going to help us back here on Earth, and also help us in exploration going onto the moon and then further onto Mars.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Yeah, we're very grateful for the contributions of our many small businesses, which brings me to the next thing I'd like to talk about. We have quite a few women and people of color with us today, representing their small businesses and research institutions. And I'd really love it if you could just spend a bit of time talking directly to them about the importance to NASA of including historically underrepresented voices like theirs.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think, my own background, I'm half Indian and half Slovenian. My father immigrated from India when he was in his later 20s, not really speaking much English when he got here, and made his way. And, just having a different perspective than other folks that have been in the business for a long period of time will enhance that creativity, that innovation, and allows people to solve problems differently. I've seen it in my own two eyes, not only through my father's, but working with all of our international partners. It's very obvious too. We ask people to make a spacesuit or make a module or a communication system. And when you see how people solve those problems, create those products from different parts of the world, you're like, wow, I never thought of it that way. And I mean, that bubbles down right down to the difference of people here in our own country. If you're a woman, if you're a man, you're different ethnicity, different skin color, you come from a different background, and you come from a different way potentially of solving a problem that maybe the people in the past have never thought of. And the answer to you is so clear. And so I think that is so important, to ask the different questions, ask the questions to a bunch of different people, see what the answers are. And then, like on the International Space Station, we actually have the luxury in the end game to pick the best solution as we go on to our next program, going back to the moon and creating a new spacecraft, because we've had the opportunity to look at how these different technologies work, which one is better, how do you optimize it for the next problem that you're going to solve. So in my own small experience up on the space station, it's been obvious and in my face, and I just am so happy to be able to share that, because I think people realize that everyone brings something to the table. And it might, at one point in time, may be the right answer, but another point in time, it may not be the right answer, but it might be the right answer for the next program that we're going to do. So there's so many opportunities out there for innovation and creative thinking. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Thank you for that. And, speaking of that excitement, talk to us about why you're so excited about space and the missions that NASA is working on and planning for right now. Why should our audience also be excited about those things?
Yeah, Bethany, great question. I have been so lucky. When I started my career, we were just starting to build the International Space Station. I got to be a construction worker, got to go up there and live and work, and with all the science that is going on right now to help us on our next steps of exploration. And then, the icing on the cake is, the new missions that are coming up with the SpaceX Dragon and the Boeing Starliner. I mean, these companies that we have asked to do this task is showing us that, this is technology that's achievable, and people are interested all over the world, not to mention just the United States, and everybody wants to get involved. And like I mentioned earlier about the question about, everybody brings something to the table. We're all contributing to helping our own species to live here on our planet better by having this grand observation place of the International Space Station, and also tapping into that desire, that human desire for exploration as we take those next steps and we live sustainably, potentially on the moon in the near future. And of course, that's going to be the next stepping stone for getting us out of low Earth orbit and over to other planets in our solar system like Mars. I mean, it's just an exciting time. Of course, when the space shuttle stopped flying, people were wondering, what's going on with the space program. But at the same time, we had 5 programs going. We had the shuttle program going, the Russian Soyuz program, which was taking people to the International Space Station program going, the Commercial Crew program, as well as the Orion and the Space Launch System program. So it's busy. It's all the pre-work before the big game. So there's so much innovation technology that's occurring in the space business. It's just overwhelming and exciting. My niece and nephew, every time I talk to them, they ask me, what's new, and they're excited about it. And they're, in junior high and elementary school, they get it, which means that next generation gets it and they are ready to get involved. So it's important for us to lay that foundation, that groundwork for them so they can springboard off it and do much bigger things than we ever even imagined.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much. But really, really great insight. Suni, I cannot thank you enough. I'm so sorry we have such a short amount of time. I really, really appreciate you being here with us today. I think it's safe to say you've inspired all of us to keep applying our unique talents, whatever they might be, to help each other and to help NASA achieve more of these incredible historical things. We wish you the best of luck on your next mission, and we'll be cheering you on from here.
Thank you, Bethany, and thank you, everybody, and have a great conference, a great meeting.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Clark. I'm the Deputy Associate Administrator for the NASA Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate at NASA headquarters. It's my pleasure to be with you today, albeit virtually. NASA research goes back well over 100 years, back to the days of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, the precursor to NASA. And NASA research is involved in every U.S. aircraft and air traffic control tower at the U.S. airports. This is why we say NASA's with you when you fly. Here's a list of various technologies that are on board aircraft today that NASA research contributed to. For example, composite structures, the glass cockpit, icing detection, winglets, and at the control tower, the air traffic management system. These are all active systems that NASA Aeronautics Research has contributed to. And we're going to continue to be involved in the development of future technologies. So how do we do this? We focus our research in 6 strategic areas that you see listed here too. And all of these 6 areas focus on the global mobility, environmental challenges, and technology convergence. And I'll talk more about these here in the next slides. These 4 main areas are where we apply those 6 strategic thrusts, as we call them. Quiet supersonic flight over land, the next generation airliner, advanced air mobility, and airspace management. So for quiet supersonic flight over land, we are developing the X-59 low boom flight demonstrator. Lockheed Martin is developing this aircraft as we speak in their Skunk Works facility in Palmdale, California. These are actual photos of the X-59 taking shape. You can see here in the center, the wing body attached to the fuselage. You can see the vertical tail taking shape in the upper right. The nose here in the lower left. The GE engines have already been delivered. We have 2 engines, one that's going to be flying on the aircraft, the other a spare. This is a very exciting program. It's actually taking shape, as you can see. And what we're going to do is fly this aircraft over land at supersonic speeds and acquire the sonic boom data when it reaches the ground. This concept, we expect, will quiet that sonic boom so that it's not a window rattling boom when it reaches the ground. We expect a quiet thump, and we'll evaluate this data and eventually take this to community areas where we'll acquire data and actually acquire feedback from the community on the noise level to find out, is it acceptable? Is it a quiet thump? And what we're eventually going to deliver this data to the international community for evaluation as well. All in the hopes that we can develop concepts that can then be provided to airplane manufacturers to actually develop quiet supersonic flight over land. For the next generation airliner, we're focusing on 4 technology areas. The small core gas turbine. We want to reduce the core of the engines to make the engine smaller, which reduces the weight, which will help increase the fuel burn benefit. Electrified aircraft propulsion. We are going to transform aircraft propulsion into electric hybrid first, and then all electric aircraft, which will iteratively reduce carbon emissions to the point where when we get to full electrification, we'll have 0 carbon emissions. The transonic truss brace wing that you see in the wind tunnel on the lower right, this is a long, thin, high aspect ratio wing that is braced by those trusses to the fuselage. This wing design will provide 5 to 10% fuel burn efficiency. And then the high rate composites. Today, the Boeing 787 Dreamliner is virtually all composite. We want to increase the manufacturing rate so that future aircraft can be developed more economically and the throughput is increased. Composite aircraft are lighter weight, which again will provide more fuel efficiency for the future airliner. I mentioned electrification. We have another X-plane that's in what I'll call development, slightly different than the X-59. We are in the process of modifying a current aircraft, as you can see here in the lower right, first to integrate electrification into the engines on the end of the wings. And we will acquire data as we fly this aircraft with this hybrid propulsion system, and eventually modify this aircraft to an all-electric propulsion system. Again, we want to reach the point where we have an all-electric aircraft to get to 0 carbon emissions. In the Advanced Air Mobility project, we are developing various concepts and systems and developing systems with commercial partners, academia, and our regulator partners at the Federal Aviation Administration. Apologize for that slip there. And in various areas, we are developing a more revolutionary system here of unmanned aircraft. We are working with companies that develop drones for eventual package delivery and scale these drones up to deliver cargo. And we do it safely in the national airspace. We are looking at this revolutionary vertical lift technology in areas where we'll have electric air taxis. If you remember the George Jetsons cartoon from back in the 60s, that is not science fiction. These concepts are being developed today to eventually fly people in these electric air taxis in particularly urban areas and also in rural areas as well. And so we're developing these technologies with our partners to have more efficient and safe flights of these electric aircraft in the national airspace, particularly in the urban areas where it's very busy. And speaking of the national airspace, we continue to develop the air traffic management systems that the FAA will be operating in the future. In the center here, we've got what we call EPIC 3, which is efficiency and proactive planning. We are continuing to digitize the air traffic management system, and we want to get more towards a collaborative and highly automated air traffic management system that can handle all of those type of aircraft that I mentioned earlier, the unmanned systems along with future passenger aircraft, cargo aircraft as well. This will be a more highly automated system that can operate complex systems and be more dynamic and adapt to all of these systems that come online in the 2045 timeframe. We have some other areas that the Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate focuses on. Hypersonics technology is one. We work very closely with our Department of Defense partners in developing the hypersonics areas through research. There are also commercial interests out there for hypersonic flight. We are working with some of these companies to evaluate some of these concepts to deliver cargo point to point in a much more rapid fashion. So we'll continue to see how that commercial interest develops. In the transformative aeronautical concepts area, we work on long-term concepts and support future projects through transformational tool development that our partners can use to more efficiently develop concepts and eventually develop technology to the point where we'll demonstrate those concepts and lead to eventual development. We also do fundamental development of physics-based methods and multidisciplinary optimization of these tools and research areas. And we work very closely with academia that I'm going to talk about here in just a minute. And then finally, we manage a set of large wind tunnels across our various NASA centers to enable test capabilities to test these concepts that I've talked about. We provide these test capabilities not only to NASA researchers, but also some of our government partners as well. And so we will continue to maintain these test capabilities to help aeronautics research move forward on future programs and projects. And finally, we want to continue to develop the next generation of aeronautical innovators. So how do we do this? We have a very innovative and exciting area that we call the NASA University Leadership Initiative. And this is where universities propose on their own research efforts focusing on those 6 strategic areas that I mentioned earlier during my presentation. And NASA issues grants to these universities. And once these grants are issued, the lead university then develops a team reaching across other universities and colleges to actually execute this research and provide the results of the research to NASA Aeronautics. This is a very exciting initiative. And as you can see, this is just a sample of the universities all across the United States, including historically Black colleges and universities, minority serving institutions. And what we're finding is that some of really the innovative ideas are coming from what we'll call these universities that aren't typically rooted in aeronautics research. And so this is very exciting, and it's providing a pipeline of our future aeronautical researchers, as you can see here on the left. So thank you for your time, and I look forward to any questions you may have.
Hello, and thank you for joining the Innovation and Opportunity Virtual Conference. This session is titled The Mission Directorate Vision for Human Exploration and Operations. My name is Lindsay Aitchison, and I work at NASA headquarters within the Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate. The HUA organization, as much as the name implies, is responsible for all things related to human exploration in and beyond low Earth orbit. This includes launch services, space transportation, and space communications in support of both human and robotic exploration programs. In low Earth orbit, we're most known for the International Space Station, and going beyond into exploration, we include commercial space transportation, exploration systems division, human spaceflight capabilities, advanced exploration systems, and the space life sciences research and applications. Our main vision as we're going forward for exploration is the Artemis program. This is an ambitious mission that looks to land humans on the moon in the South Pole in 2024. We're taking a very strategic approach as we return to the moon, doing slow buildup, testing out first the uncrewed flight around the moon, then the crew around in lower orbit, and finally with the Artemis 3 mission, the Orion and crew dock to the human landing system for the first crew expedition to the surface. After that initial mission, we're going to a sustained transition where we're going to learn how to live and work on the lunar surface as we practice using the techniques and new technologies that will be required as we transition to the first human missions to Mars in the next decade. Of work. And when you think about all those ambitious activities, we really have to be strategic about how we prioritize our needs to get there. So when we do that, we really ask ourselves three big questions. What do we need in order to do the mission? What should we buy versus partner on? And how much budget do we need to accomplish these missions? So let's start with the first question. What do we need to do? What we need to do really comes through a filter of our capabilities integration framework. And we do this by starting to ask ourselves, where are the gaps? A gap is defined as by looking at our current capabilities compared to what we need in the future and really looking at where we need in the middle. So once we've identified those gaps, we also really focus on how are we going to close them. That's important because understanding your gap is one thing, but we need to have a strategic way to close that. So that includes how do we need to test new technologies? What does it mean to close it? When does that need to happen? And how do we ensure that this technology gets transitioned into a flight phase so that we can actually use it to accomplish our missions? There are a couple different types of gaps, and so we'll just briefly touch on those. So for us, we have development gaps, and so that's defined as something where it's at least a TRL 5. We understand what's needed. We just need to finish the engineering so it gets integrated from being a technology into flight hardware. The second type is a technology gap, and that's more traditionally what you would expect to see from this type of program. So these are technologies that we have a general understanding how they work. It's a basic research, but we really need to do more to test out, build prototypes, and make sure the system will work with our flight needs. And so here are some examples that we're working today would be cryogenic propellant in space transport and refueling, mitigation of microbial growth in spacecraft systems, durable spacesuit heat rejection, and the list goes on. So these are technologies that we'll know we need, and we have a general idea about how to get there, but we're open to looking at lots of different ways to implement solutions. Architecture gaps, this is something that we think about those as being the bigger idea. What are the connecting blocks of our overall system that we need to define that'll help feed into what becomes our later technology gaps and development gaps? And then we identify those and they lead to more gaps as we close them and we get closer and closer to being able to execute our missions. The third category of gaps is knowledge gaps, and these are examples that would be just the basic technologies that we need to figure out some basic research. And again, all of these, as you close one gap, they can open up a new one that's higher up in the development cycle. And it's really important to understand these so we can make prioritized calls about how to close those gaps. Once we have those gaps and they are prioritized, we have different ways that we can fund the closure of the gaps. So for today, I'm going to focus on the technology gaps because really that's a place where small businesses can have the greatest impact on our system. Within HEO, we have several different contracts and grant type mechanisms that could be utilized, but I pulled out three here as some of the biggest examples that you should really pay attention to. We also partner with the Space Technology Mission Directorate on development of some of our technologies, either through the STAR initiative or directly through the SBIR STTR grants. The next step 2 is a broad agency announcement contract, and it's really a public-private partnership model. That means that we are working to partner with commercial industry to develop new technologies. And by partnership, that means that there is actually funding coming from both the commercial entity as well as NASA. It is open to all categories of US and non-US institutions, and each announcement, each solicitation underneath this broad category is tailored to specific research areas. And there are new appendices or solicitations being added on a rolling basis underneath this larger umbrella contract. So you can see here, this is a list of several of the past solicitations that we've had on the Next Step 2 vehicle. And so there's really a wide range of what we're looking for with these. So they can be something as major as an entire habitation system or the human landing system that will carry the crew to the lunar surface, but also some smaller, very specific targeted technologies such as trash compaction and processing and space relay partnerships and services. So there's a wide variety of opportunities, and this is one, if you flag it in FedBizOps, you can be alerted each time that there's a new solicitation added underneath this category. The next opportunity that I would like to point you to is the Human Research Program. So the Human Research Program, yes, it is definitely has the objective stated here where it's focused on quantifying crew health and performance risks associated with spaceflight, the development of countermeasures, and the development of technologies to help develop strategies for monitoring and mitigating crew health and performance risks. And this might seem a bit nebulous at first if you're a technology provider or hardware provider, but there is the Red Risk School that I think will help you to really pay attention and to figure out where you fit into the bigger picture. Red Risk School is a seminar series that NASA provides. You can find past sessions on YouTube, and it really helps connect the dots between research needs and capabilities that you can provide as a company. So that'll help you bridge that gap between the funding calls and what NASA is looking for. Additionally, you can check out TRISH, which is the Translational Research Institute for Space Health. And this is where we can find a variety of funding opportunities from the $100,000 to $500,000 range. It's targeting high-risk early-stage research, as well as pre-seed and seed stage health technologies. So that's an area where you might be able to participate. So really check out that call. Lastly, there's also the HERO, Human Exploration Research Opportunities. It's an omnibus solicitation, similar in style to Next Step in that it has multiple solicitations that come out on a rolling basis. And so you can check out the different opportunities that come through that mechanism as well. The ISS Commercialization Directive, this is a fairly new opportunity within HEO. And so this one is focused on commercialization of low Earth orbit and focusing on commercial manufacturing and production specifically. Within the solicitation listed here, the International Space Station Utilization Solicitation, we're really wanting to point you in the direction of demand stimulation. And so we have a separate presentation and a Q&A engagement that'll be held later in the week that'll help focus on what we mean by demand stimulation in the LEO marketplace. What we're trying to do is target specific in-space manufacturing, regenerative medicine, and other critical research areas that can derive benefits from microgravity. So not looking for general basic research, but really trying to create a sustainable market in low Earth orbit. And so there are 3 phases of awards underneath this particular vehicle. So there is early concept development awards, followed by design, maturation, and prototype development, and flight hardware and production opportunities. And so with each of these 3 phases, you can submit an application on a rolling basis. So it's not that you have to wait for a specific funding call. It is open now, and you can submit when your design is ready. And you can even use your SBIR program to meet the early award concept development. So you can use that to make yourself more competitive as you go forward. And so this is something that Kevin will really touch on in the Q&A live engagement session. The last one that I'd like to touch on is SBIR technologies. HEO really does rely on these to help us bridge those technology gaps. And you'll see a lot of our SBIR technologies have been rolled into either larger system development or plugged directly into an ongoing vehicle project. And the way you do that is really the technical monitors that we assigned to the SBIR Phase 1 activities. Those are going to be your champions for this process. In many cases, our tech monitors are individuals that have decision authority within NASA to help with these development activities that benefit from your technologies. They're going to be the person that will help you identify customers for cost sharing in phase 3. And they're also really a good resource for any of the technology providers to have increased context and to learn more about requirements for the technology as part of a larger system. And that'll help you infuse your technology and make yourself more competitive. So please do rely on your tech monitors. Additionally, as we just touched on, ISS utilization topics have led to permanent capabilities on the ISS, and that was also by working with the tech monitors. So please feel free to use those resources as you go forward. Lastly, here is a page of all the key references for the programs that we've talked about previously. I encourage you to check out these websites, get more information. There's a lot of technology, there's a lot of work, and we certainly look forward to working with you in the future for human exploration as we go forward through the Artemis program. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me today. I am Florence Tan, and I am the Deputy Chief Technologist for the Science Mission Directorate, or SMD, at NASA headquarters. I'll be giving you an overview of SMD and a summary of our active technology programs. As well, I'm here to testify of the importance of the SBIR program to the success of our missions. And finally, I'd like to tell you about SMD's technology endeavor, the Entrepreneur's Challenge. At SMD, 3 key science themes drive us: protect and improve life on Earth and in space, search for life elsewhere, and discover the secrets of the universe. Our SMD divisions, heliophysics, Earth, planetary, astrophysics, and biological and physical sciences, all benefit from an interconnected community where science and technology development in one area often influences another. With an integrated portfolio, we can achieve high impact, transformative, multifaceted science to support exploration through innovative technology. These existential questions you see before you are the fundamental focus of our science themes. At SMD, we have almost 24 technology programs that provide over $250 million for competed projects. And our active flight projects invest about the same amount of money. These programs base their solicitations on the science objectives that are detailed in the National Academy's decadal surveys. Many of these programs issue solicitations and selections annually or biannually. I want to talk about SBIR's role in one of these science missions, the Curiosity rover. These are some of Curiosity's science discoveries. Since its 2012 landing, Curiosity has detected carbon-containing compounds and a variety of organics in its soil samples, and shifting levels of methane in its atmosphere, Mars atmosphere. For the first time, we performed a geochronology experiment, which provided the formation age and exposure age of a rock. We made isotope measurements, providing a compelling story of the atmospheric evolution of Mars. Curiosity provided evidence that liquid water and the chemical ingredients for microbial life once existed on Mars. These findings provided clues to our questions. How did the solar system evolve? Is there life elsewhere in the solar system? The SAM instrument on Curiosity played an outsized role in making these discoveries. Within SAM, 2 companies funded by SBIR built the technologies that directly contributed to these measurements. I was the electrical lead engineer for SAM, and I worked with these companies to ready their technology for flight. The first of these companies was CRIERI. We worked with CRIERI to build the Wide Range Pump, or WRP. CREARI received phase 1 and 2 funding to develop their turbomolecular drag pump on the left here. SAM provided $6 million post phase 2 funding to build and develop these 2 wide range pumps that we flew on the right. This is remarkable because in the lab, turbomolecular pumps also require a backing pump. CREARI's innovation shrank 2 large lab pumps into a single wide range miniature pump. The pump you see is smaller than a 7.5 ounce Coke can, operating at 100,000 revolutions per minute. This pump is an integral part of SAM. It is a gas processing and sampling system that made it possible for SAM to make its analysis and therefore Curiosity's discoveries. The second company I'd like to highlight is Honeybee Robotics. Honeybee Robotics was started by 2 engineers with the idea of making drills for Mars. Since the 90s, Honeybee Robotics won SBIR grants to create tools for Mars missions. The dust removal tool, or DRT, flew on the Curiosity rover and traces its heritage to the rock abrasion tool, RAT, which was on the MER rover, and the Mini Corer, both funded by SBIR. These early successes fueled the meteoric rise of Honeybee, and it has continued to provide other key technologies necessary for our off-world exploration, including the SMS, or Sample Manipulation System for SAM. This sample manipulation system has 74 cups and enabled us to take soil samples to be pyrolyzed and analyzed on SAM, and therefore enabled several of these discoveries that I just mentioned. According to Steve Gorovan, the co-founder of Honeybee Robotics, the SBIR program was absolutely vital in the early days of Honeybee Robotics. In 2017, Honeybee was acquired by a larger company and therefore graduated from the SBIR program. SBIR has fostered and grown companies like Honeybee from literally 2 guys with an idea to build drills on Mars to a world-class research and development company that has benefited the nation multiple times over. Technology from Honeybee has been licensed to companies around the country as well. The SBIR dividends continue to multiply. Several technologies on the Perseverance rover, now on the way to Mars, derive their technologies from SBIR funding. I look forward to telling the stories of these successes from these technologies when we arrive, and also the maturation of these companies in time to come. As I mentioned, we have almost 24 technology programs across SMD that nurture the development of science instruments and information systems to gradually build new capabilities for our future missions. It's mostly incremental innovation. The project PIs are from NASA field centers, academia, and industry, but very few startup companies. We spoke to 12 startups at conferences in the last 2 years and basically heard the same thing. They don't understand our processes. Our process is too burdensome. Our process takes too long. A common theme was cash flow. They could not wait 11 months for a decision for a proposal, for which the answer might be no. We care about startups because they tend to bring fresh ideas and they're uniquely positioned with the agility to produce breakthroughs. The goal of the Entrepreneur's Call is to give these types of companies an on-ramp to our technology programs. We use the prize authority to make quick payments, not in 11 months, but in 11 days, literally. Companies that are eligible can apply and present and win up to $100,000 in prize money if they have a great idea. We selected 3 areas for this round: quantum sensing, high resolution spectrometry, and physics-based transfer learning and artificial intelligence. We held a Shark Tank-like event in July for round 2 and we selected 10 companies to advance to round 3 this week. For round 3, we will be interested in understanding how the companies link their concepts to a NASA problem. In the last month, we assigned NASA mentors to each team to help them match their concepts to our application. These mentors are very important to the program. Here you can see the list of companies that we selected in each of the topic areas: 4 in transfer learning, 3 in mass spectrometry, and 3 in quantum sensors. Our mentors work with the companies to prepare them for round 3 to help them better understand what is expected of them and how our applications might be suitable for their concepts. During the round 3 presentations at IOC, companies can also learn about the SBIR program and can set up meetings with NASA's technology leaders for individual one-on-one meetings. This is an example of the types of information we collect from the companies. In the case of the company Connect, it is using an artificial intelligence and machine learning method to maximize the performance of optical cavities. This is particularly useful for mode-locked pulse lasers that are impacted by issues with materials and by diffraction. And this self-tuning can mitigate the resulting negative effects. The results, the benefits go beyond NASA applications to areas such as lasers used for data storage. I look forward to seeing the results of round 3 and how we at SMD can work with SBIR to identify and build our future technologies, and for the companies to grow to power our economy to come. Thank you very much.
Okay, so you just heard from the Aeronautics Mission Research Directorate, Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate, been a long day already, Human Exploration and Operations Mission Directorate, and the Science Mission Directorate. In just a few minutes, we're going to have some technical engagement breakout sessions, and this will give you an opportunity to talk directly with mission directorates and ask them questions. You'll need to go back to the agenda and click on the mission directory you'd like to meet with.
All right, Mike, that's appreciate you bringing us back in for these midday announcements. Now, before we send you off, we just kind of want to quickly go over the rest of the agenda. After the breakout sessions that Mike talked about, they're going to be the networking sections at 12:35. That's Eastern time. We know people are on various time zones, but that's Eastern time. For that, you just click on the link, the Join Networking link from the agenda page. Now, I want to bring up the fact that it's going to take you to a different platform called Wonder. Again, the reason why we're using Wonder is because it's more interactive, obviously, than Facebook Live. It's a little bit better for people just kind of networking and talking than Zoom. So, you know, when you click on the link, you will see it open up a new application called Wonder. So don't get alarmed if it's something that you haven't seen. For those of you that were on yesterday, you used Wonder for the networking session, so this shouldn't be new to you, okay? So we encourage you doing these networking sessions, not just to look for the NASA representatives and talk to the NASA representatives, but also looking for you to meet with your peers and connect with your peers. You may find it interesting, and you may find it beneficial to get perspectives from people that have gone through the journey. Maybe they've recently been through this SBIR, STTR journey, or you may find that it's beneficial to talk to others that are in the same situation that you're in. Again, I mentioned this at the beginning that a lot of us were researchers before we converted over to SBIR. And I know that at some point I realized that in order to win awards, in order to win proposals, I can't do everything. I'm going to need to connect with people that have facilities that I don't have. Maybe it was a research institution, or even myself. I had SBIRs that I managed, and I would look 3 and 5 years down the line for proposals that I were applying for. And let's say that at NASA Goddard, that's my center, we do a lot of Earth and geoscience research and development. We do a lot of radars, radiometers, detectors, do a lot of planetary science. So I knew that I couldn't do everything. And so we're looking for you to utilize these sessions to not only talk to the NASA representatives, but to also find people to work with in your peers. Now, after the networking session, I will be moderating a post-phase 2 panel where we'll be talking about the different opportunities available at post-phase 2. I know by now that we're sounding like a broken record about transition, but transition is all about taking your technology from a proof of concept or a demonstration of concept to a TRL level, technical readiness level that NASA can integrate, or what we call infuse, this research and development into our missions, research, and flight projects. And really, the objective, we want to be able to fly this, we want to be able to use this. Another aspect of infusion is commercialization. I know we're sounding like a broken record, but I know this should be good news for the firms, and especially the firms that's on the line, because you'll see that your design or your development, your research and development doesn't only have to be something that NASA can use, but you can start looking in advance, like how can I commercialize this and sustain my business? And it's a win-win for the government and for the firm, because as we put more small businesses, as we incubate more small businesses, this brings money to the economy. These programs are somewhat of a set aside to build the economy. So this is our objective, and it's a win-win, okay? Now, we'll also have a breakout section to connect more deeply on this post-phase 2 topic. So you'll see once we get into this post-phase 2 panel that the first section will be a panelist giving you kind of an overview, but no matter where you are in the process, yesterday we talked about even if you just have an idea or you haven't even started to think about post-phase 2, you can kind of get a head start on this in this panel, because we're going to have a breakout session for firms or small businesses or research institutions that have never won an SBIR award. You're new to the program. On up to, we're going to have a breakout sessions for those that have won post-phase 2 awards and you want to be able to transition your technology, okay? And so that's kind of the main logistics for this afternoon. We wanted to bring this up because we're using 2 or 3 different platforms here. So I think that's pretty much it. Mike, you got anything else here?
Yeah, thanks, Quentin. So after the panel that Quentin was discussing, we've also got the Ask Me Anything session.
Yeah.
So all the questions that you've got as far as the live session, this is a really good one to bring, because you'll have people who are representing our program, the program executives, program management, will be there to answer questions. So even if you don't have specific questions, you might find it really helpful just to hear the answers to the other ones that people are asking. So please make sure you join that. Then we're going to close out the event with a couple of videos from some of the programs, especially successful firms, and hope to give you a sense of what it's like to see a company that's done a transition, not just with the technology, but with the firm themselves. Going from a startup to, a lot of times these companies are turning into companies that we just can't work with anymore because they're no longer below 500 employees. Anyway, so we'll end with that. And for right now, let's go ahead and it's probably a good time to take a little bit of a break. I think your breakout sessions with the mission directorates, Quentin, correct me if I'm wrong, they're beginning at what time? Or 12:05?
12:05. Yeah.
So folks have got about 10 minutes to sort of get themselves situated, maybe take a break from the computer and get right back in, and we will see you there.
Hey, welcome everybody, and thank you for joining our post-phase 2 panel. I am Dr. Quentin Bonds, the Center Lead for NASA's SBIR STTR program at NASA Goddard. And you're in the right place. This is not the announcements. This is a separate panel, so you're used to seeing me on the announcements, so you're in the right place. This is our post-phase 2 panel. I'm joined today by our entire post-phase 2 team and our procurement liaison, Ashley McQueen. We got two Allisons on the team, so I'm going to be saying Allison. Anyway, our post-phase 2 workstream lead and fearless leader is Matt Dean. Matt, you give the people a quick wave. Our post-phase 2 technical advisors are Dr. Bill Toscano and Allison Zuniga. Allison and Bill, please give the people a wave so they'll know who you are. We have our business analyst, our post-phase 2 business analyst, Allison Mutter. And last but not least, the person's name that I pretty much messed up, Ashley McQueen. Please give the people a wave so they'll know who you are. Okay, so during this session, we're going to pretty much talk about what mechanisms will take you past the basic phase 1 and phase 2 elements of the program to one step closer to commercializing and transitioning your technology. You've been hearing a lot about the term transitioning, and I've said it many times, but for those of you that may not be as familiar with it, we want these technologies that you developed in NASA's SBIR, STTR program to be infused into our missions, research, and flight projects. Basically, we don't want this stuff to sit on the shelf. We want to use it. That's what we're looking for in transition, and we want you to be able to commercialize these technologies. And so the way this panel is going to work, we're going to spend the first 20 minutes hearing and learning from the panelists. Then we're going to break out into 3 breakout groups, all right? And these breakout groups are going to be tailored to where you are in the specific process of post-phase 2. And you've identified yourselves into these 3 groups. Basically, for those that's totally new to the program, that's the first group. We're going to go over this at the end. People that are somewhat familiar with our mechanisms, maybe you won an award, and the veterans who have won a phase 2 award, and you're looking to benefit the most from this conference through the post phase 2. So even though we're going to be talking, please feel free to submit any questions in the live chat. We have some technical support people that's monitoring the chat. We're going to try to get to as many questions as possible. Don't be afraid to fire up those questions. You probably see now that only my audio is on. We're doing that because we have so many, and the audio of the panelists. We're doing this because, we want to be able to streamline this process online. Again, we only have 20 minutes, so we can't really just take interrupting questions, but that's what the breakout sessions are for, and that's why we have the chat line. However, before we get started, we want to get a sense of who's on the line. A lot of firms registered, and there's a lot of people on the conference. We want to know who's here so we can be more focused in the questions that we ask and the answers that we give. The only thing we need you to do is just scroll to the bottom of the page. You'll see the poll and click on the poll. And the poll is basically, are you aware about post-phase 2 matching mechanisms or funding vehicles, whichever way you want to look at it. These are the phase 2E and the CCRPP. So it's just a yes or no question. Yes, if you've heard of them. B, no if you, A, yes if you heard of them. B, no if you haven't heard of them. And these, the polling results should come up pretty quickly, and we want to see what's the result. All right. Okay, so, all right. So yes, I have used both. Okay. So we got about 12%. I'm familiar with either. 3%, that's a small percentage. I'm familiar and have used either due to technical reasons. Yes, but I never used due to the lack of investors. Okay, that's good to know. Hopefully during the breakout session, we can kind of help you with that. Have used the phase 2, but did not know that the post-phase 2 existed. That's pretty interesting. I didn't realize so many people didn't know about these, but that's good. That's what this panel is for. I have not reached or been involved with the post-phase 2. That's about 50%. Okay. You haven't reached the post-phase 2 level and you haven't been involved. Okay, that's good to know. So hopefully, looking at these results, I think this panel is really going to be very helpful for you all. And if not the panel, the breakout sessions are going to be very, very useful. Okay. So let's get right into this. We only have about 15 more minutes. My first question is for Allison Mutter. Allison, what would you say, and that's our business analyst, what would you say would be the purpose of our post-phase 2 initiatives, Allison?
Sure. So if folks are familiar with our phase 1 and 2 mechanisms, those are nominally for proof of concept and building a prototype. But obviously the budget level and time allocated for phase 1 and phase 2 is not always sufficient to develop technologies that are ready for the market. The purpose of our post-phase 2 mechanisms are to get firms past these initial phases and on towards commercialization and infusion. Commercialization is the process of developing products or services for sale. This could either be to the federal government or to commercial markets. Infusion is a subset of commercialization, where technology is purchased and used by a NASA project or mission. So in short, we want small businesses with phase 1s and 2s to be able to transition their technologies to users and markets, so they can take what they've developed and be able to get funding from outside of SBIR or STTR. We hope that these post-phase 2 mechanisms are the push to get them there.
Thank you, Allison. I think she explained it very well. I wouldn't say anything differently. So I'll move on to my next question, and this question is going to be for Allison Zuniga. Allison, what would you say would be the objective of the post-phase 2 funded vehicle? You know, kind of try to go into what's unique about it, things of that nature, cost matching. Allison?
I'm on mute. Okay. Hear me now?
Yeah, be patient with us. It's virtual. Thank you. Yeah, we can hear you now, Allison. I think she was on mute. Go ahead, shoot away. Phase 2.
Yeah, so we're talking about phase 2E, you said. So first of all, the phase 2E is an option in the existing phase 2 contract. So if you've already been awarded a phase 2 contract, then you should be able to apply for this option online. And the window to apply opens up after the 12th month of your phase 2 contract and up to 60 days before the end of your contract. So you have that window where you can then apply to exercise that option. And the objective of this option is to further advance innovations and technology development work under the existing phase 2 contract, and as well as advance the technology readiness level of the phase 2 work. You will also be asked to provide a commercialization plan with your phase 2E application, and you will have the opportunity then to work towards commercialization of your product under this phase 2E option. In addition, you will be required to secure investor funds to contribute towards your proposed technology development work. The investor may be a NASA program, other than the SBIR, STTR program. So you have, the entire NASA agency to connect with a NASA program manager to be able to secure investor funds from that NASA program. Or the investor can be external to NASA, such as a VC firm or angel investor, or it could be an investor from another government agency or private industry. And the SBIR STTR program office will match up to $375K of the investor funds, and there's also a minimum of $25K. And you can have multiple investors to add up to reach the $375K. So that's about sums it up for the unique aspects of the phase 2E option. And for more information on phase 2E, I refer you to the reference library to check out the videos that we have there that go into more detail on phase 2E. And you can also check out the SBIR website for post phase 2 activities, and you'll see some more information there on the phase 2E option.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Review the resource library. We have a lot of things on our website. So that's a very good, I think that's a very good synopsis, Allison. So next we want to move on to the CCRPP. We have Bill here. And I think what I would like to do is, Bill, could you walk us through the CCRPP, what distinguishes it from other funding vehicles?
Yes, Quinn, thank you. So mandated by U.S. Congress, CCRPP program is targeted for the commercialization of SBIR, STTR technology. The word commercialization appears in the acronym for CCRPP. Stands for Civilian Commercialization Readiness Pilot Program. The CCRPP purpose is to accelerate the SBIR CTTR technology for NASA infusion and or commercialization. It is not an incremental improvement in technology maturation only. So that's very important. Eligible companies are those with SBIR or STTR phase 2 awards resulting from phase 1 program starting 2010 to the current date. The cutoff is for the base phase 2 period of performance. Oh boy.
So, Bill, you're having a couple of technical difficulties. Like Bill may be having a few technical difficulties. So what I'll do is I'll jump in real quick and just a few things to highlight. So the phase 2E and the CCRPP, these are funding vehicles that you want to just, if you receive the phase 2, that makes you eligible for these two. All right. And so just like Allison said, the phase 2E is extension of your phase 2, and CCRPP, you would have to have finished a phase 2E, phase 2 rather, within a certain amount of time. Okay, you back?
Oh, so I'm back on. I'm sorry about that.
All right, no problem. I just did a quick explanation of some of the eligibility requirements of the phase 2E and the CCRPP.
Great.
So, yeah, so I think what we could do is circle back for a few minutes, but I would like Bill, you and Allison Zunica to talk about, you both talked about investors and investments. Can you both provide some examples?
Well, as Allison mentioned earlier, more than half of our investors come from NASA programs, both for phase 2E and CCRPP. So it's very, and it's very important for the companies, once they have their phase 2E or CCRPP, to establish a relationship with their core, their contracting officer representative. He will share, that person will share with them the opportunities that may be available for investment. Other investors may be industry, maybe other federal agencies, nonprofit organizations, VCs. So we've had a wide gamut or spectrum of investors over the last, 10, 12 years of the phase 2E program and the last 5 or 6 years for the CCRPP program. I don't know if you mentioned it, but I want to continue on the CCRPP description that is as phase 2E, you need external investment. It can be one or more investors for CCRPP. The program will match dollar for dollar, starting at $500,000 up to $3 million of that external investment. Period of performance is 24 months. Our call for this fiscal year is coming out October 26th. That's next week. And in this call, we're allowing companies with completed phase 2 projects from other government agencies to participate. So we did that this last year, and we're offering it again this year. And of course, as Allison said, you can find more information on the research documents listed, as well as our website, the NASA SBIR homepage.
Yeah, so the research documents Bill is talking about is the resource library. And I think that's a really good point to highlight, is that we're enabling CCRPP's phase 2Es of other agency SBIR, STTR awards. Allison Zunica, is there anything that you want to add as far as about investors and investments? Bill hit on some various examples, but is anything that you would like to add since you talked about phase 2E?
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize again that we do have lots of NASA programs that serve as investors for our phase 2 companies. So these programs come from all of our mission directorates, from aeronautics, science, space technology, and human exploration. You can reach out to any one of those mission directorates and find a NASA program that will invest in your company. To talk about a specific example, one good example is the STMD's Flight Opportunities Program. So this is a program where they offer suborbital flights, and they have partnerships with lots of different companies like Blue Origin to provide a suborbital vehicle and test out your new technology. So Flight Opportunities has partnered with SBIR, and they're willing to invest in a company where SBIR, the program will match those investments up to $375K. So one example, recent example where Flight Opportunities invested in a company, they invested in a technology development for a refrigeration system for cold storage on spacecraft vehicles and for the ISS. The company requested several parabolic flight tests to analyze the effects of microgravity on the compressor cycle and flow rates in the system. Flight Opportunities worked with the company to get them on these flights to meet their technical objectives, and were able to work together to also raise the TRL by providing that flight opportunity. So you can check out more information about Flight Opportunities Program on their NASA website. As I said, they're partnered with our office, and we also do mention it in our website as well for Phase 2Es and CCRPPs. So if you have a technology that is almost ready for flight, you can take advantage of this as the Flight Opportunities Program has committed to invest in some of our companies.
All right, thank you, Allison. So we're running a little bit behind. We want to make sure we get to these breakout sessions. However, you talked about government investments. I haven't heard from Ashley. I want Ashley to hit on examples of any of our types of government investments with the SBIR STTR program. I also wanted to ask Matt, we haven't heard from him, about mechanisms that are not funded through SBIR STTR. Ashley, can you speak to some of those government investments really quickly?
Sure, absolutely. So one that was actually touched on a little bit yesterday was Phase 3 contracts. So Phase 3 contracts are a very great contractual option. It allows the flexibility to have multiple investors, whether it's multiple federal agencies who are interested in your technology. So really quick, a quick example, if NASA is invested, with a technology your firm has developed, and another federal agency is interested as well, they're able to provide funding to NASA to help fund that Phase 3 contract. Phase 3 contracts, any firm who has had a Phase 1 or Phase 2 award are eligible for a Phase 3 contract. If you are no longer considered a small business, first of all, congrats to you. If you graduated from a small business to a large business, you're still eligible. You're still eligible for a Phase 3 contract. There's no restrictions as far as company size, right? There's also no restriction on the contract type as well as the contract value. So I know we're running against time, so I just encourage everyone to visit the resource library. There's a lot of great information there, but definitely Phase 3 options is a huge option that's out there that has a lot of flexibility.
And just to follow up on Ashley's comment, and transition to the next point, for our 2Es and our CCRPPs, if you have a government investor, be it NASA or another government agency, they can put their funds on a contract with you, their matching funds, via a Phase 3 mechanism. Now, that said, our 2E and our CCRPP are both COTS matching mechanisms, and we know that is something for awareness that is a great transitional mechanism because your investor would only have to spend half because we are doing a one-to-one match, and you can get multiple investors, which then drives that down even further. We do have other mechanisms, so please keep an eye out on SBIR.nasa.gov. We do periodically run pilots. We recently ran a large pilot called our Lunar Sequentials to pipeline some technologies to near-term moon opportunities. Lunar opportunities is part of the Artemis and Moon to Mars programs. So please keep an eye out on SBIR.nasa.gov. And for some of these pilots, we might be in direct communication with firms. So please keep your eye open for that. And if you or any of your investors have any questions on the SBIR post-Phase 2 programs, please check out our website. We are more than happy, and our contact information there, we're more than happy to explain.
All right, cool. We have just enough time to hop onto our breakout session. So you all have self-identified as 3 groups within our breakouts. Session 1, you can just go to the agenda. For those of you that have never heard of our post-Phase 2 mechanisms, just click on the agenda, Click on the session 1 link. It'll take you to a Zoom link. We're going to be in that Wonder link. We're going to be in that breakout session. All right. Session 2, you have some familiarity. In session 3, you're well informed. All right. Members of our post-phase 2 team are going to be on all of these breakout sessions. Let's convert over to those sessions right now. Heading there. Talk to you later.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ask Me Anything panel. My name is Bethany McClave, and I'm the Outreach and Engagement Lead for the NASA SBIR and STTR program, part of the Program Management Office that's based at Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley. My primary responsibility in that role is focusing on how we can reach out and connect with you, whether that's via email, at a virtual conference like this one, or at in-person events when we can safely resume those again. I'm joined today by my colleague, Eric Smith, and we'll be moderating today's panel. Eric, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, everybody. As Bethany said, my name's Eric Smith. I'm the program's Chief Customer Officer. In that role, my job within the Program Management Office is to make sure we're keeping you all in mind as we're developing processes, enhancing our systems, or making changes to the program. The session's designed to be really open-ended. We don't have an agenda except to answer any SBIR or STTR related questions that you all have within reason. To help us address your questions today, Bethany and I are joined by a stellar group of panelists, including our NASA SBIR STTR Program Executive, Jen Gustetic, our Deputy Program Executive, Janelle Steele, Carlos Torres, our Program Manager, 2 of our workstream leads, Scott Dockham, who leads up Phase 1 and Phase 2, and Matt Deans, who leads our post-Phase 2 efforts, and our lead contracting officer, Teresa Stanley. I think you've heard from most, if not all, these panelists over the course of the past couple of days, but now's your chance to really grill them or just ask them some questions.
That's right, Eric. So if there are any questions that have been on your mind from before the event started that you haven't gotten to ask yet, or something that's come up during the event, now is the time to put those out there. To submit your questions, you want to go ahead and put those in the chat box. We have some technical support folks who are monitoring the chat, and we'll get those questions over to us throughout the session. So feel free to put them in the chat box at any time. Just a couple quick rules of engagement that I wanted to go over so we can make the most of this session. First of all, we're going to do our best to answer any questions that you ask within the allotted time that we have. But do know that this is probably not the best venue for specific technical questions. We have program support folks from across the SBIR and STTR program, but you heard from a lot of technical experts yesterday and today, and you also got a lot of tips for interacting with NASA. So, suggest you put those tips to use in reaching out to those technical folks if you have really technical, technology-specific questions. And as a reminder, you're going to have one more opportunity for networking tomorrow afternoon, and you can find some NASA folks there. Second, with the November 9th Phase 1 solicitation coming out very soon, we are not able to talk specifically about the technical subtopics that will be in that solicitation. So once the solicitation opens, NASA enters what we call a blackout period, and at that point, we cease all communications related to the solicitation and any technology you might be proposing. So, really to summarize there, general questions about the solicitation are okay. Specific questions we can't answer at this time. And finally, audio is only enabled for the panelists. To make sure we have no sound interference from the very many of you that are tuning in. So as I mentioned before, drop your questions into the chat. And with that, let's jump right in with a question. Eric, you want to start us off?
Yeah, perfect. And kind of in line with my focus on customers, let's start with this one. Can you tell me more about the I-Corps program? And let me throw that one to Scott Dockham.
All right, very good. So the I-Corps program is a program that is conducted through the National Science Foundation, and NASA partners with the National Science Foundation to help small businesses who get a Phase 1 contract with us to actually start what we call the customer discovery process. So I-Corps is a training program. You'll start working with NSF to understand how to go out and find out who your customers are. So those could be customers both within NASA, and they could also be external customers in private industry. So it's a program that NSF has been running for years. The main focus on that was to really help transition technologies that may have been stalled maybe in the academic arena and transition them into a commercial market. NASA saw a really good opportunity for our phase one awardees to be able to utilize those same skills. And that's the reason why you're able to apply and go through that program through NASA if you're successful in getting a phase one award.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Actually, you know, as a follow-on question to that one, because I think there's a little bit of a similar nature to these. Can you talk a little bit more about TABA? You know, that's something that there's some presentations in the resource library about that, but we didn't spend too much time on that at the live event. So can you just tell us a little bit more about TABA, and maybe also a follow-up question to that is there a downside to using TABA?
All right. Yeah, so back in well, it was actually August of 2018, Congress implemented a new law, which was called Technical and Business Assistance, or TABA for short. Basically what that is it allows you as a phase one awardee with NASA or a phase two awardee with NASA to receive money outside of your project to help you develop your commercialization roadmaps. So the idea here behind this law is to actually help you commercialize the technology. I mean, that's what SBIR is about. So TABA is a way to actually provide that assistance to you. You use a third-party vendor, so you don't get to keep the funding in-house with your own firm. You have to hire somebody outside of your firm to actually help support you and move forward in helping you commercialize. So at phase one, we're going to be implementing the program this year in the new solicitation. So this is information that I can share because it's been cleared. But basically what we're going to be doing is for you at phase one, you can get $6,500 to help you develop what we call a commercialization plan at phase one, and then also develop how you would write a commercialization and business plan, which is a part of your phase two proposal. So we're trying to get companies to start thinking about commercialization early on in phase one. Then at phase two, you can get actually $50,000 to actually implement your commercialization plan or your TABA plan, and also start achieving those commercialization activities that you have outlined to us in your phase two proposal. That in a gist is what the TABA is about. It's really focused on commercialization activities, helping your firm get leverage the opportunity of the phase one, phase two program to commercialize and move that technology into a commercial market or into a federal market, such as a NASA market or maybe DoD or something else. Downsides to using TABA, I'm not sure there are any that I can think of. From a firm's perspective, it's really a great opportunity for you to take an opportunity to actually use that funding and help develop that commercialization activity, particularly at phase one, because NASA has a 6-month period of performance at phase one. So there's not a lot of time for you to be thinking about commercialization, where you can actually hire a vendor at phase one to be thinking about that for you and help you build that as a partnership as you get ready to apply for phase two. So that's really one of the key things about using it. So yeah, unfortunately, there's no downside from a firm side. From the agency side, there are downsides. It's money we have to cover. We have to figure out how to cover those costs. But that is something that we're definitely happy to do because we do see benefits in how this will be used by firms in the future.
Yeah, and I would just add 2 additional commas on the end of that for firms. One is that money is in addition to your phase one and phase two award. So it's not within kind of the research and development scope. So that's kind of a separate plus up. Same thing for I-Corps. I-Corps is a training grant that is money over and above the award value, the actual R&D award value. So just wanted to make that clear, that this isn't a trade-off that you're trying to have to make between your R&D funding and your business assistance funding. It's a plus up.
That's correct. And I would just like to also add, we have in the resource library 2 videos, one specifically on TABA itself. I would encourage you to review that. It's very descriptive, and there's a lot of answers, a lot of questions that are posed there with answers. So it should help you understand that. And then also we have a commercialization and business planning video as well in the resource library that really talks about how do you step up and get ready to show how you're going to commercialize and do that as you submit your phase 2 proposal
and work through your phase 2 project.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Jen. We've talked now about planning for commercialization. Let's maybe move on to talking about commercialization itself. I'll throw this one to Matt Deans, who leads up our post-phase 2 work. What kind of advice would you get, and how would you think about connecting with potential NASA customers through the post-phase 2 vehicles that we offer?
Yeah, so thanks everybody. And first of all, I think that if you're pursuing a post-phase 2 vehicle through NASA, many of you already have a NASA phase 1 or phase 2 award. So the first touch point that you have available to you is your technical monitor or COR. Please engage them. They are technical subject matter experts who are intrinsically tied with many NASA programs. You are more than welcome to ask them to invite others if you have briefings or reviews. Please feel free to reach out to them and ask for other stakeholders. Forums like this and other forums are also great places to meet various other stakeholders across NASA, so that you can be aware of what NASA's ongoing pursuits are. And as a way of knowing the broader landscape, both the NASA experts, the NASA planned programs, what other additional customers outside of NASA is. We see a number of cross-cutting investments from other agencies in our post-phase 2 mechanisms. And it's not even just the obvious ones all the time. It can be DOD, DOE, but we have seen everything from the Forest Service, Department of Agriculture, you name it. There's a lot of cross-cutting applications. A lot of those communities are tied closer. So yeah, first touch point, definitely your TM and COR, offer to involve other stakeholders so they can be aware of your development and you can ask them questions. And then, as Scott mentioned, customer discovery and I-Core training would be great as a way to learn how to broaden your reach outward beyond that.
Hey, Matt, that might be a good opportunity too to talk about I-Core and post-phase 2, right?
Yes, yeah. So just as a heads up, we do have under certain mechanisms the opportunity for I-Core as well to continue or further development that. Obviously, to get a post-phase 2 mechanism, 2E or CCRPP, you might have some segment of your audience understood, but please keep an eye out on that in our releases and in our mechanisms to know if that's something to pursue additionally, because obviously we want technologies that come out of our 2Es and CCRPPs to transition to the NASA markets and the commercial markets. The more customers there are, the better the technology gets developed and the more available it is. So we have our own vested interest for doing that, but we encourage people to consider doing that. You might have one customer, but keep expanding it further.
Great. That's a great answer, Matt. So, we kind of talked through preparing for commercialization, like commercialization, infusion. So I want to ask a specific question that maybe a lot of folks are thinking about. You heard yesterday from the administrator about the importance of small businesses contributing to the Artemis mission. So how does the SBIR program support Artemis, particularly when urgency and timeliness is a key consideration? And I'll open that one up to the whole panel.
I can take a first stab and then ask other folks to pile on. I'm sure Matt has some thoughts here as well on the post-phase 2 portfolio. In the SBIR program, even though we sit within the Space Technology Mission Directorate, we support everything NASA does. So you'll see that our portfolio invests in science, space technology, aeronautics, and human exploration. And Artemis is obviously a huge part of what we're doing in human exploration, with also implications for space technology and science. But there is a bunch of other stuff that the agency supports in terms of R&D that the SBIR program also supports. So we of course are trying to make opportunities for small businesses to play a meaningful impact in Artemis, knowing that technology development takes time and it doesn't happen overnight. So one of the pilot experiments that we actually ran this past year that Matt can talk more about was to try to accelerate investments in technologies that were in our pipeline already, that through an accelerated higher dollar value investment with a clear tie to a customer program and project management for that project that's more active than what you typically see with a phase 2 SBIR, where there's a core, a COR, but sometimes they can be a little bit more hands-off. We kind of created this triad of there's a Artemis customer, get the game-changing development program or the small spacecraft technology program to provide project management oversight for the project, and then a higher dollar value award that is really focused on customer pull for enabling technologies for Artemis. And we we're in the process of awarding nearly $30 million of contracts for a phase 2 sequential. It's basically a second phase 2 award that we're using in that way that are very targeted towards Artemis objectives. And that's because we've got to do this fast, right? So it's likely things that are already going to be in our pipeline, especially since we at NASA right now don't have a direct to phase 2 authority. So we have to think about pulling in things that are already in the pipeline to accelerate. We have tons of subtopics too that relate to that topic in Scott's wheelhouse, right? There's plenty of opportunities for folks in the last couple of years, as you've seen in the last couple of years, solicitations to have to get new entry points for Moon to Mars related objectives. And so tons of opportunities, whether you're at just the entry point or whether you're already in and you're looking for opportunities to accelerate.
And quickly, Jen, if you're at the entry point, then in our solicitation, you'll see that our subtopics have an icon, a moon icon. So we try to make sure that you understand which subtopics particularly are related to the Moon to Mars mission easily, hopefully. You can go back to the past solicitation, and in our upcoming one, we'll also do the same thing.
And just to add on to that, Jen mentioned our special lunar sequentials, which we executed last year. But note that there are other means by which we can on-ramp technologies quickly. The CCRPP solicitation, which we talked about in the last session, which opens soon, is a one-to-one match up to $3 million, which when doubled is now $6 million. That is a lot of sudden effort. And we've actually had Moon to Mars technologies pursue that accelerated path. Even this last year, we had future spacesuit technologies being accelerated via that. But also, as we highlighted before, phase 3 authority is something that our NASA stakeholders have on past phase 1s and phase 2s. It doesn't need to be a completed phase 2 to get a phase 3. So as Janelle mentioned, we have new subtopics coming in that we've identified, and we will keep to identify emerging needs as we explore the moon and run into challenges. But some of those awards might not just go from phase 1, phase 2, post phase 2. It might be phase 1 to phase 3. So please take a look at our pipeline, our back catalog. You can see how our solicitations have evolved through the years, and know that we will keep tackling the latest and greatest challenges in the Moon to Mars exploration.
Yeah, and just one final thing on this is that while we were all very, very excited about Artemis, and this is a major effort for the agency and for the nation, as I said before, we do support other subtopics and areas for the agency. And so please read the subtopics. And even if it's got the moon icon, that doesn't mean that the moon icon is the only application for that particular subtopic. So read the subtopics in detail. You know, not necessarily everything that we're funding needs to be focused on Artemis, right? Because we also study our home planet, right? Like there's other things that we do. And so just want to make sure that the efforts of the Aeronautics Mission Directorate, the Science Mission Directorate, and the other areas of HEO and space technology are not necessarily minimized, you know, as a result of the very warranted energy around Artemis and the desire to get involved in that. Just note there's a number of different ways to get involved to the program.
All right. Thank you all for that robust discussion. I will throw another one to the panel as a whole. How does NASA bring in and reach and engage a diverse community of entrepreneurs and research institutions, you know, underrepresented compared to sort of the national makeup?
That's a really good question. And we try to do it doing several different avenues, actually. We work in collaboration with our Office of Small Business Programs and our Office of STEM Engagement, OSTEM, to connect the OSTEM, the Office of STEM Engagement has a particular mission to work with minority institutes and HBCUs. And so we try to connect and collaborate with them. They have a HBCU road tour that they do twice a year, I believe. And Office of Small Business Programs used to sponsor them, but now it's under OSTEM. And so we go outreach, make sure we bring our subject matter experts, talk about SBIR and STTR directly with the research institutes. We also have particular outreach efforts that we try to identify women-owned organizations that are supporting women-owned businesses, organizations that are supporting minority-owned businesses. If you know of some organizations that you would like for us to come to and speak to, we're happy to include those. But it's basically in our outreach efforts that we try to get out to the community and bring those companies and research institutes into understanding SBIR. There will be a panel tomorrow that is going to speak directly to minority institutes. MSRDC, that is their acronym, Minority STEM Engagement. I might be messing up their full name, but great organization that will talk directly to HBCUs and MSIs and get them engaged in how they can work with NASA. There are a lot of phase 0 efforts that are going on that might help organizations gear up. Phase 0 is basically a effort to help organizations gear up to start working in phase 1 and phase 2. So reach out to those organizations. We have connectivity to them and are trying to make sure that they understand our program, how NASA can utilize the technologies, their capabilities to solve some of our technology needs.
Well, great answer, Janelle. And that kind of segues into, I'd like to spend a little time. We had a lot of folks identify themselves as phase 0 firms. A lot of the folks that I talked to today and yesterday in the networking identified themselves as being interested in working for NASA and with NASA and maybe not having an SBIR, STTR contract yet. So maybe we could take a little bit of time to answer some questions about the solicitation and the proposal process. So I'll start with one, which is how is a proposal's commercialization weighted in comparison to technical merit? And I would ask, we can kick that to Carlos or Teresa or Scott to answer that for us. How is a proposal's commercialization weighted in comparison to technical merit?
Scott, did you want to go first?
Sure, I'm happy to take that. Thanks, Carlos. Yeah, so the commercialization piece is a little bit different for both parts of a proposal at phase 1 and phase 2. So at phase 1, when the proposal is submitted, we're actually not looking at commercialization in depth. It's going to be more technical merit on the proposal is what we're going to be looking at, because you're trying to prove proof of feasibility or trying to prove a concept. And you may not exactly know where the commercial market may be. The point of phase 1 is to start figuring that out as well if you receive an award and move forward. So what you'll see in there is we're actually asking you at phase 1 just to kind of describe what is the market opportunity. But it's not in detail. Like, it's not going to be, you don't have to provide pages and pages of information on that. We just want to have a general sense. Do you understand what the market opportunity is for the technology that you're proposing to us at phase 1? Phase 2 is where it gets a little bit more involved. And as I mentioned earlier, there's actually a commercialization and business plan that is submitted as part of your phase 2 proposal. You can look at the phase 2 proposal as 2 separate documents. One is the technical portion of the proposal, and the second portion should be the commercialization and business plan. So you have to kind of understand how that all works when you submit for phase 2 and where your commercial market is. So under the review process, the technical merit will be reviewed by technical folks. And then we have a commercialization panel who is made up of experts outside of NASA that understand how to commercialize technologies. They've started up businesses. These are experts in those areas. They make up that panel and they review your commercialization plan. So they're going to provide input to the commercialization plan. Your technical reviewers at phase 2 will provide the technical input. That will all be rolled up and be looked at further on in the cycle of the review. And all of those things are taken into consideration as we move forward to make selections. What I will say is under the last round of selections, the commercialization and business plans were looked at. People were very interested to know that these companies applying for phase 2 funding really had some insight on where that commercial market would be. So it is taken seriously and something that we felt was important to bring out in this conference, which is another reason why we devoted a video or, in the resource library specifically for the commercialization business plan. We want folks to understand that is super important.
Thanks, Scott. I mean, this is also all the more reason why you don't want to leave money on the table. And as Scott spoke earlier about taking advantage of TABA as well as I-Corps, because all these feed in not just to that commercialization plan, but your opportunities at
Matt and Jen spoke about for your post phase 2 opportunities. All these things help put you in a better position to get those activities started off in the right direction.
Yeah, and I would say, Matt, we're going to say the same thing, so you go ahead and say it.
If I can add one additional detail, as Scott and Carlos mentioned, the post-phase 2 mechanisms also do require commercialization plans. Though we're asking you to get an outside investor for the 2E and the CCRPP, it's not enough just to say, look, I have one potential customer. We do want a detailed commercialization plan in those post-phase 2 mechanisms, especially for the mechanisms that do have a focus on the near-term acceleration to infusion or commercial markets.
All right, thanks everybody. Keeping on with this thread, but maybe a little bit about the phase 1 and phase 2 process and what it's like to have an award, get an award. Let's throw this one to Teresa. When a phase 1 award is made, how is the funding dispersed to the company? Do we get it all at once? Does it come in smaller payments? And then kind of add-on question, at the end of the phase 1, does the phase 2 have to follow immediately, or is a schedule gap allowable?
Sure. So with the phase 1, we have, because they are a short period of performance, we do have the payment split up into a third. So you get 3 payments. The first 2 payments are advance payments. That means we don't have any type of deliverable that's tied to it. Once you submit your invoice, then the payment is made to you. And then the final one on the phase 1 is where you have to deliver your final deliverable and then submit your invoice, and then the payment will be submitted. The phase 2, of course, it is part of the selection process. So there may be a little gap between the period of performance and that period of performance start date. However, it would be a continuation of just building on from that phase 1. And then that period of performance is 24 months. And then those payments are actually tied to a milestone, so they do have deliverables. Did I get all your answers there?
Well, I'll just add a little bit, Teresa, because I think that was a great answer. That also too, know what Teresa said, the importance, because a lot of other agencies don't do it. The advanced payments for our phase 1s and how that goes allows you to build the capital and the things you need as you start off a phase 1 company for those in the phase 0 stream. In addition to phase 2, and during COVID, we've accelerated all these payments to make sure that companies can be well and can be established. And this is a top priority of our contracting staff to ensure that you are paid timely and quickly. And this is also known by our core. So you can expect expedient service and payments throughout our program.
Cool. Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Teresa. To get in with a phase 1 through the phase 1 solicitation, there are 2 potential routes you could take, and that's SBIR or STTR. Can someone, perhaps Janelle, talk to us about the differences between those and what it takes to be eligible for those 2 programs?
Sure. So SBIR is I like to call it the big sister of the program. It's the larger program. A small business has the option of partnering with any subcontractor for SBIR. Unlike STTR, they have a requirement to partner with a research institute. It is the little sister of the SBIR program. It's the smaller piece of the pie, but because STTR is a little bit smaller, a little bit more challenging to partner with that research institute, we don't get as many folks proposing to it. So your odds of winning an STTR, if you do get a partner, are higher. SBIR has an award size for phase 1 of $125K, and the period of performance is 6 months. For STTR, it's the same award size, $125K, but the period of performance is 13 months. And that's because we understand the need to partner, and we understand that when you're partnering with a research institute, you might want to have to avoid some of the summer breaks and things of that sort. Both of those programs do offer, as Scott talked about, the I-Corps program. So you can be an SBIR company and get I-Corps, as well as an STTR team and get I-Corps. So look look for those activities, and particularly with if you're STTR, because of the longer period of performance, your I-Core activity is the full boot camp where you can really do that customer discovery. For phase 2, SBIR and STTR are the same in the award amount, which is $750K, and the same in the period of performance, which is 24 months.
If I could just add on too, TABA is also available for STTR as well. So you can get TABA funding for both phase 1 and SBIR and phase 2 SBIR, and then also for STTR phase 1, phase 2.
Great point, Scott. Thank you for that.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. So talking a little bit about the follow-on to phase 1 and phase 2, we've got a couple questions about phase 3. So kind of throwing this out to the panel, because I think there are advantages in a number of different domains here. Can folks talk about the power of phase 3 contracting and some of the advantages to NASA and to the small businesses with phase 3s?
Okay, I'll take a shot first then. So the phase 3, it's one of the most powerful, I think, features in government contracting of the SBIR and STTR program, because it allows an expedited process for continuing work. Namely and chiefly, it doesn't require a justification for other than full and open competition, as other things do. And that's because you've already competed either under your phase 1 or phase 2. It also has very strong implications for your data rights. Those data rights continue to evolve and be exclusive to you throughout that process of the phase 3. In addition, those data rights cannot be a condition of negotiation during your phase 3 to be waived. So Congress thought very thoroughly about protecting data rights and heard the community in the importance of that. And those are for both SBIR, STTR. Lastly, and I'll let others add, is that the phase 3 has no limit or duration. So you could go from a phase 1 directly to a phase 3, you go to a phase 2 to phase 3, and those can be for any type of contract type or duration.
And I will add on to that too, that is, it's funding from other sources. It's not SBIR funding. So you have that where you can go out to other investors or other agencies to be able to provide that funding for you.
Now, we do recognize there is a challenge, though, in sometimes the belief, both on the part of the small business and the government customer, that you can go to a firm non-competed to phase 3. So there's education all around, right? You have satisfied competition once you win a phase 1. And that's the hard thing sometimes for government customers to, well, there's this FAR thing. I have to compete everything. You've satisfied competition for any derivation of the technology that you won the phase 1 award from by winning a phase 1 award. From the day you've won the phase 1 award, you don't even have to complete the phase 1 period of performance. And I find it useful sometimes when the folks just don't believe you, because that seems too good to be true. I mean, it's like, really? That seems kind of crazy. There's tutorials on the SBA website that talks about phase 3s and the power of phase 3s. And it's useful to refer people to the government websites that describe phase 3s, right? Too, when you're trying to make the case to prove, no, really, it is true. It is true. This is a thing. But just don't want to undermine that we recognize it's very difficult to get to phase 3. It's not like it automatically happens. That it's difficult to find the customers. It's difficult to sometimes convince the customers and then get into their procurement life cycle so they can think about that decision point, whether they decide to fully and openly compete something versus just go directly to you. So these are usually full, longer lead customer relationship development activities as well. And it's never too soon to start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and
thank you, Carlos.
This is why we like the TABA and the I-Core, where starting those early to do that customer discovery and doing this will put you in a lot better position towards that phase 3 goal.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos, Teresa, and Jen. Really, really good points. We really cannot evangelize the phase 3s enough. And we know, as Jen said, there is an education component there. It really behooves you to get smart about what the features of a phase 3 are so that you can sometimes educate your potential government customers and help them understand why it's really well suited for them to come to you. And so I want to ask a question related to that, which is we heard from Teresa that one of the really cool features of a phase 3 is they can cross agency. So how does it work when a company has an SBIR technology, a phase 1 or 2, that did not come through NASA, but rather through another agency? And any tips for them on getting introduced to potential NASA customers? And I'll open that up to the panel.
Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So in terms of how they can be more familiar with NASA customers, forums like these, for one, is something I would encourage. I know in the current COVID climate, forums such as these are not as common and conferences are reduced, but I would definitely encourage people to reach out to NASA stakeholders in other forums and let them know what technologies you have developed through other agencies and make them aware that this phase 3 option exists. As we've already discussed, it's not something that is relatively well known. For those people who may have entered our phase 1 pipeline with one technology, you do have your technical monitors and CORs. They are great references as a way to learn about those things. One other point of information to learn more about NASA technologies and what NASA developments are, aside from forums and our websites, the NASA Technical Report Server is a public report server where you can learn more about what NASA's done in areas, and that might be another resource for finding people that you can introduce yourself to that work in that area. Additionally, our website itself has contacts of all of the center technology transition leads for pertinent centers as a way to reach out to them to say, hey, I would like to learn more about areas at your center and find out if there could be associations there. So please use our contact information as well. We are always more than happy to try to put things together where we can.
Yeah, I would accent that point because our center technology transition leads are fabulous folks at the centers. You've been listening to Mike and Quentin at MC and all that energy that they bring. They bring that energy to helping you solve your problems too. And we've got ones at all centers who have that same amount of energy. So please do. In our resource library, you'll see points of contact for all those centers. And we also have the mission directorate liaisons for all the mission directorates. So they understand the top-down needs, the technology needs that are out there. So please do reach out to those folks. They have the energy, they have the passion, and they love to make those connections.
Yeah, and one additional thing that I'll just say, and to beat the dead horse on why we all think I-Corps is so amazing, is that it's really hard. Business development is hard, period, for anybody, right? When you're trying to sell your thing and break into new markets and make new connections. But a really important skill to learn is how to ask the customer about their needs and then listen and not just pitch your widget. And this is relevant to the phase 3 conversation in that it could be tempting to say, I have this technology, I have this phase 1 or phase 2, I'm going to go shop it around to as many people as possible and hope someone just loves this widget as much as I love this widget. What that's not doing is teaching you anything about the market and what the customer's needs actually are. And you could be selling a widget that no one actually needs if you're not listening, right? And so one of the things that I-Corps helps with is the painful process through like at least 30 customer interviews, up to 100 if you're STTR, learning the hard way what kinds of conversations are received well and teach you something and build relationships with potential customers. Because again, to that point about this being hard, right? It's not like you're gonna get a meeting with a NASA SME and all of a sudden the next day of phase 3 is gonna manifest itself. These are relationships based on product market fit. You have to understand your market and the customer's pain points in order to understand if that exists. So Scott, back over to you.
Yeah, I was just going to also chime in, make sure you're thinking outside the box. There's a lot of federal agencies that have similar missions and similar visions as NASA. And myself coming from one, I was with USDA before I came with NASA. We saw several NASA technologies that were funded at phase 1, and actually we implemented as phase 3s. And Matt even mentioned the Forest Service earlier, which is a branch of the USDA. So, you know, there's a lot of opportunity to think outside the box and what other federal agencies could potentially provide you with a phase 3 opportunity. So you'd want to make sure you're thinking along those lines as well.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for that discussion as well. I think we've got time for just about one more question. I think this will generate a little bit of discussion. I'm going to piggybacking off of some of the challenges of entrepreneurship. What happens when success is not immediate? So let's say that my phase one proposal wasn't selected, but I got comments back that indicate that the technology is actually promising. Or let's say that I had phase one that seemed like it went really well, but then our firm wasn't selected for phase two funding. What advice do you all have for, kind of pivoting and moving forward in those types of instances with NASA SBIR? I'll throw that one to the panel.
Try again. No, I think to start off with, we do take, and our subject matter experts are really, really great with giving you the comments that will hopefully help encourage you, show you where, if your proposal was off in one area or so, they'll show you, they'll talk to how that proposal could have better addressed their needs. And so we encourage you. It is not, space is not easy. Space technology is never easy to conquer. A lot of the problems that we have are ongoing problems. And so we do totally encourage you to take those comments as best you can and understand what you might need to do to better your proposal for the next time. Working again with some of those intermediaries that we have out there who can also help you interpret those comments and maybe help you prepare a better proposal going forward.
I mean, to build on what Janelle indicated is that for our phase ones, you automatically will receive a debriefing of your strengths and weaknesses that you had during your proposal. Sometimes you could also have one that says, you're pretty much excellent everywhere, yet you may not have received an award, and that's just due to the very competitive nature of the SBIR program in the phase one. As Janelle indicated, the STTR does have less proposals, and there could be a greater chance of odds within that. There's also some topics that have more competition than others. And so these are all things that you want to pay attention to and continue to move on. As we heard, is talking to the center technology transition leads that Matt indicated are super helpful contacts. So you can get in contact with the SMEs or cores that are doing that work to really listen, as Jen indicated, to understand what their needs are. As you heard in some of the other panels for transition, one of the things we heard is just because that topic has things, you really need to be thinking forward to what those next steps are on how to implement what the company wants. So it's not the phase one. Where am I going? Where does that lay me out for the phase two and the other areas of that? And in addition, there's also opportunities at other agencies. It's not uncommon to build up on the phase three thing that other agencies do by our SBIRs and vice versa. So the SBA set up the schedule such that they don't overlap, so you can always compete in another agency. There's many agencies that solicit the same type of topic areas that NASA does as well.
And they do so more frequently. So some of the other agencies may have more than one solicitation a year. So if you do see NASA as being a customer ultimately that you would like to work with, you do want to work with us ultimately, that doesn't mean that we're necessarily the only source for SBIR funding for you either. There's a number of other agencies that have different ways that they think about the types of firms they fund. And we've partnered with people like NSF who have more open topics that might be open to, for example, the development of businesses and ideas that might be a little pre-NASA, right? Like you're not at the point where you have kind of a NASA application identified yet. And so think about the ecosystem of other programs as well, in terms of frequency as well. You want to practice more than once a year. You want to get good at something usually. So it could be a good idea potentially to even try to apply to a different program as well to get additional feedback.
And to quickly add on to the To quickly add on to the try again, please look at our solicitation every year. Some subtopics return, some are new, but even the ones that are returning might have updates because we have found new challenges. So please take a look at what the new challenges are, and also be aware that some things are cross-cutting. Technology A might have been in a subtopic for airplanes one year, but the following year it might also show up in the Science Mission Directorate because they need that technology for Jupiter, and it might be freezing cold there, so they might have an extreme environment where your innovation might not have played well for airplanes, but could play well for extreme environments. So please don't just focus in on where you applied previously. Look from year to year, things cycle in and out, things update, and things might spread across mission directorates. So please canvass the whole thing.
All right, I think that's excellent advice to leave on. Read the solicitation, try again, and practice makes perfect. And looking at the clock, that's all we have time for today. Thank you all in the audience.
Eric, I'm sorry, can I say real quick, from a person who will forget my son's names, I want to make sure that I acknowledge that MSRDC stands for Minority Serving Institution STEM Research and Development Consortium. Woo! And they will be having their roundtable tomorrow at 11:15. So just had to throw that in there.
Being good feds and explaining all of our acronyms. Thank you all to everybody. Thank you to the panelists for your thoughtful answers. And I'll hand it off to Bethany to close us out.
Thanks, Eric. I want to echo the gratitude to the panelists and also to our audience for all of your insightful questions. We weren't able to get to all of them, but I hope we got to some information that was useful to you. Just because this session is over does not mean we want the learning to stop or the dialogue to stop. So stay tuned today to hear from some success story firms in their own words, and then from our MCs for some closing announcements. And then be sure to tune back in tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time as Eric and I and our Deputy Program Manager, Anna Cordry, talk more about how we're focused on keeping you, the small businesses, at the center of everything we do. And then after tomorrow's sessions, you can find us again at 1:30 Eastern for happy hour networking and bring those last questions and suggestions. So thanks again, everyone. And we'll roll on into the success story from the firm's words. Thanks.
Thanks.
All right. Hi, Sean. How are you
Well, so far today. How about yourself?
doing? Well.
Here, what? I don't even know. It seems like an eternity, but it's actually only been a couple weeks, right?
Yeah. I think this is week 5.
Great.
All right. So I have a few questions to ask you about the NASA SBIR and STTR program and what kind of work you've done in the area and share your experience. Is that all right?
Sure. Let's do it.
All right. How and when did you start with the program?
Maston got involved with the NASA SBIR and STTR way back in like 2010, 2011 timeframe. So we actually have some contracts that go all the way back. But we've been in and out throughout the years and really hit our stride in 2016 through the last couple of years.
Great. And through that experience, what would you say is the greatest value that the program has provided to Maston?
Hands down, it is getting to work with other subject matter experts in the field in the related areas. So Maston has some phenomenal ideas and talent inside, but the real value has come from working with people inside the agency and then other partners, being introduced to other people that are working in the area. It's entirely different to be coming up with an idea versus actually engaged and working with people. It makes all the difference in the world.
That makes sense. So how has this grown your company since you first started with the program? How has Maston been able to grow?
Well, first off, we have been able to mature some of the technologies. That's been good. Second of all, it's actually helped us craft what it is that we're working on. So the I-Core program of going through and kind of making sure you're focusing on what are the actual needs, not just the perceived needs in the market, has made a huge difference. It's helping us tie in the big ideas and the value we can see from a technical perspective, and make sure that it's not just connecting with the things the agency says they have interest in, or a report says the industry has interest in, and actually having an actual real thing to point to and say, look, here it is. Here's real data that meets a real need. And that has helped us make sure that we're focused and not just kind of chasing something just because it's cool. Cool is great, but we're looking to take these and turn them into sustainable things for the future.
That makes sense.
Turns out there's got to be a business case for stuff. And the SBIR will definitely help you get there. It may take a while, but it'll get you there. It'll get you moving in the right direction, that's for sure.
Great. And then I think my last question for you is, what new doors has the program opened for you?
Working in SBIR and STTR has opened up more of the kind of technology development path. And I think I said at the beginning, the introductions to other people that are working on things in the industry has been really important. And as a matter of fact, many people have probably maybe have heard some stories about one of that SBIR from 2010, 2011. We had a flying rocket that we were using to do plume testing, and it didn't occur to me that the thing that was really important wasn't the rocket. It was what the rocket could do to create value for someone else. So when these NASA scientists were out at the site and one of the guys was crawling around on the ground, I thought there was something wrong. In actuality, there is value to plume impingement experts because they had never seen where a rocket has taken off and landed multiple times. And so getting that SBIR and getting into that work then helped us understand where we could create value for other people a lot better.
So this is going to be a lesson for me to learn as the new employee here.
Cool.
Hello, my name is Milan Moshanovic. I am the CEO and a co-founder of Freedom Photonics. We're based in Santa Barbara, California, and our company has grown organically to become a leader in unique and innovative photonic solutions. We're standing in front of our facility in Santa Barbara. It's a 21,000 square foot facility where all of our R&D and manufacturing work takes place. Our world-class team of about 50 people is working hard every day from this facility to create new, outstanding, and exciting photonic products and solutions. We first started participating in the NASA SBIR program about 5 years ago. We had two NASA scientists come for a visit, and they were looking for a special laser for their application. So that led to our first SBIR award. We have since expanded our work with NASA, and we now actively work with multiple NASA centers on cutting-edge photonic solutions for instrumentation and sensing applications mainly. The SBIR program has provided us with the opportunity to develop new technology and then also to commercialize it and help our company grow and find strategic customers. To date, we have released 3 products based on technology whose development was supported by the NASA SBIR funding, and we have a couple more in development. Our company has been very fortunate to grow significantly over the past years, and we have close to tripled our size since we started working with NASA. Getting NASA awards in collaboration with NASA has helped us develop new technologies, which have also fueled our new products and the company growth. Due to our growth, we're in the process of expanding our facility, and we're right now building out an additional clean room and additional office space in the new part of the building. NASA SBIR program has not only helped us prove the feasibility of technology, but it has supported us in transitioning it through the Phase 2E program into a commercial product. And this process was very smooth. Again, we had help from NASA knowledgeable personnel who worked on securing matching funding for commercial customers' funding, and that eventually led to 2 new products being released at the end of the Phase 2 program. Our technical team really enjoys working with the NASA experts who we find knowledgeable, entrepreneurial, and excited about new technology. It is great to have an opportunity to learn about a new field from the world's foremost experts like our customers at NASA, and that's part of what makes our work really rewarding and enjoyable.
Hello, my name is Tom McCarthy, Vice President of Business Development for Motive Space Systems. Motive Space Systems was formed in early 2014 in Pasadena, California, just a few miles outside of JPL. Motive was formed as a robotics and motion control company with products developed for space. It's built on a multidisciplinary engineering core staff with strengths in electrical, mechanical, and software engineering. But to start our journey, we knew that we were going to have to develop success through the SBIR program. So back in 2015, we embarked on our very first Phase 1 opportunity. It was called the Dual Axis Controller for Extreme Environments, otherwise known as DAISY. We initially posed the question to ourselves, can we develop robust control systems for Europa, Ganymede, asteroids, and even operate on the moon during the night without the use of heaters? Basically, can we develop avionics which operate at minus 180 degrees C? Yes, we can. We were successful and completed both Phase 1 and Phase 2 and produced an operating control system that could be eventually commercialized and used as a future product. So that commercial product was born, and it was called the Bravo. This was a fully pedigree tested and developed flight system that could now be offered to NASA and other commercial primes in their pursuit of space activities. First opportunity to deploy the Bravo was with the JPL flight filter wheel system. It provided a small, compact, and very efficient control system that could be used in the development of some of their instrument payloads. Going forward, because of that newly developed heritage with JPL, we're able to also utilize the Bravo as a solution for SNC's Dream Chaser program. As a part of their cargo module, they have a payload release system for their various payloads that need to be deployed to the space station. And the Bravo was an ideal fit for that application. In addition, and currently, we're working with the JPL team again, but this time working on the coronagraph on the Roman telescope. The Bravo once again has been selected as a solution for driving the optical positioning systems inside the coronagraph, amongst its many mechanisms that help steer the light. Going forward, we're returning to our roots. We're looking back at the DAISY, which is the Bravo, but the cold version of it that operates at minus 180 degrees C, and using that technology to drive robotics. The hope is that ultimately we'll find a CLIPS mission where a combination of the electronics and the robotics will operate cold and during the lunar night to prove out new technologies that will be needed for future sustainability on the moon. Each of these developments have been critical to Motive. They've been allowing experience to be developed, the ability to grow as a company, to develop our technology internally, and the side effects of being able to work these programs is significant to the growth of a company, and allowed us to sustain and allowed us to hire and bring in new talent and keep up a technical edge for future customers that need unique solutions or looking for future control systems for robotics or instruments or anything of that nature. We wish you all much success in your future SBIR activities, and thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of this.
All right, day 2 of our event has come to a close. I thought this was a phenomenal event. I hope the firms and the research institutions and everybody online enjoyed today as much as I did. I mean, we kind of, like I say, we blasted things off here from Astronaut Sonny Williams. For those of you that were somewhat new, and hopefully for those that's veterans of the program, you got something out of the Mission Directorate section. They kind of gave a broad overview of the mission directors. Then they got into some really focused, specific sections. We did the same thing for the post-phase 2. You know, we kind of gave a broad overview of some really key questions. Then we kind of got into the details of the post-phase 2 based on where you are in the program. I tuned into the Ask Me Anything session. You know, those were our program execs. That was our level 1 office. Some really good questions, really rich dialogue.
If you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and stop me.
So the question I've got is, out of what you were seeing today, what were some of the zingers that you saw go by? What were some of the really good takeaways for companies to hang on to? Some of the interesting little tips.
Yeah, so this is why I like our team. You see how Mike realized I was just going on and on. He said, all right, let's get right to the point. We got the best team. There were 2 things that I found to be very beneficial. One, it was during the Ask Me Anything session. It was participate in I-Corps. Okay, that was very beneficial, because just like Jen said, a lot of people come and they want to sell us a widget, right? Which that may be okay, but not for SBIR. SBIR, STTR is research and development. When you go through I-Corps program, you have to interview, I think for SBIR, like 50 companies. I may be mistaken, but for STTR, I think it's like 100 or something. You really get a chance to really test your idea and see if your idea is really what someone needs, which brings me to the other point that I thought was very relevant, is product market fit, right? Product market fit. Always try to figure out, is there a market for your technology, right? I mean, it's okay to have things that's hobbies that you're really interested in, but when you talk about business, you want to make sure that there's a product market fit, and especially for space, things are even more challenging to get that product market fit. So those 2 things I thought were just really good points. What about you, Mike? As you put me on the spot, what about you? What do you think were two or whatever? What did you think was good takeaways for today?
I think that the I-Corps message was coming through really good for everybody, but for the folks that may not have checked that option for I-Corps, really, if you take a step back, what that's saying is, acknowledge that you might not be the best in the world at business development because you're a researcher, you're an engineer, and you're focusing on that sort of stuff, but that you need some business development help. I-Corps kind of helps you learn that in the package in terms of understanding your market and your customer. But the bigger point is, even if you're not specifically in I-Corps, be thinking about that as a really positive addition to your team as you start to, when you win an award or as you start to really develop your SBIR content. But the other part too, related to the same thing, it's another aspect to look at with regards to this whole question. It's understandable that from the outside, NASA probably seems monolithic. That when one NASA person in one center has a feedback for you about a particular subject, it's easy to think that that's going to apply to all of NASA. And that's just not the case. And part of the reason is because we're all working on a lot of really different things. And to that
Yeah.
end, I'm going to share my screen. This is a document that's actually inside the resource library in the general section, and it's competency. Let's get to there.
We could see one thing, but not that one, Mike.
Okay, got it. Let me fix it. 1 second. There we go. Sure.
Now we can see it. That's it.
Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. So this document, it's available, like I said, in the resource library. And the thing that's useful about this is this gets you a sense of how all the different centers are really driving towards different subject areas. So just to stop in one particular area, so we have Johnson Space Center down here on some of the different things. They mentioned orbital debris or human health and safety in space. The point being that if you happen to have technology that is relevant for astronaut crew health or astronaut safety, then Johnson Space Center would be very interested in speaking with you versus another center might have other needs that you might not might not realize. So I'd really encourage you to think about NASA as a bunch of different teams that all are working on slightly different goals. So there might be a really good reason to make sure that you're not that you're hitting the right group of people, or more importantly, to talk to a diverse group of people across NASA would probably be the best thing. So between those takeaways, I think trying to match your product to the marketplace, it's kind of a typical business issue, but it's relevant here. So the second little piece of advice that I heard that I thought was really strong was don't assume that you need to be marketing your particular technology specifically, and stop for a moment and hear the customer out or listen to what the issues are, because you may have a real innovative and unconventional way to solve a problem in an adjacent industry or in an adjacent subject. So something that may be a simple problem for you to solve when applied to a different technological challenge can end up being really beneficial. And I'd say that's probably the big things that I got out of today. So it's really effective for me for the different sessions.
Yeah, and before you know it, you look up 3 years, you did a pretty good product market fit, or you did a post phase 2, and you're sending in your success stories to us, or on an ILC conference, we're profiling your company. And so with that being said, I would like to say thank you for all the companies that presented success stories. And, if you're a firm out there, we want to hear about your successes, okay? If you go to our website, the ILC conference, you can see and go under contact us. We have a link that you can actually send in your success stories. So it's a very long link, but it's arc-SBIR-outreach@mail.nasa.gov. So that mail.nasa.gov is pretty self-explanatory, but arc.sbr.outreach@mail.nasa.gov. It's the same as the registration page. You'll see where you can just copy and paste that link. We want to see your successes. Please send them in. But before we go, one of my favorite parts of being the MC is hearing from you, right? So I'm hearing from the firms, hearing from my audience. Even though I thought it was a really cool, workshop today or innovation opportunity conference today, I would really like to do another poll just to get your feedback. Which one of these sessions did you find the most rewarding today? Again, we won't be offended. We just want to make sure that we're providing the right content for future events. And if you don't find any of these rewarding, a poll is going to come up soon. Just put it in the chat. So A, the opening remarks by astronaut Sonny Williams. B, did you find the mission directorates and technical engagement sessions the most rewarding? C, did you find the networking the most rewarding? D, was it the post-space opportunities panel that I hosted? You find that rewarding? The Ask Me Anything session, was that the most rewarding? That's E. And F, the success stories. And again, in the chat, if you didn't find any of this rewarding, you didn't like it, we want to hear about it. We want to hear from you. So hopefully the poll should be coming up soon. We got a pretty broad, response here. Okay. We're going to give these responses a minute to stabilize. All right. Looks like Number one went to
Quentin, I think that phase 2 opportunities panel is kind of low. It's kind of holding.
Yeah, yeah, Mike, you have to bring that up, huh? we got to work on that.
Yeah. We'll have to talk to that moderator.
You got to talk to the moderator. Yeah, so it looks like the mission directors and the technical sessions and Ask Me Anything kind of is right neck and neck for a tie. Thereafter was the networking events, which is great. We're glad you're getting some out of those networking events. Looks like somebody did a few votes on my post-phase 2 panel, and Mike, now I'm above the astronauts presentation, okay?
Wow.
I got some champions here in the crowd. Appreciate you all.
So maybe we should ask another question before Quentin's head gets inflated anymore. Okay, folks.
Go ahead, Mike. Take it from here.
So this is our final question. Reflecting on yesterday's and today's sessions, how would you rate the conference so far? Remember, we won't get offended, and we want your honest opinion. So please be real with us. So A is excellent, B is great, C is good, D is okay, and E is need improvement. Needs improvement.
Yeah, I actually can't wait to see this.
It's funny I mispronounced needs improvement. That's pretty pretty good. And we're starting to get some results in, it looks like. Well, it seems pretty good to me so far. It seems that we're hitting the mark of where we're supposed to be going. Very good. Well, we do appreciate the feedback. Like Quentin and I were saying, it really does help quite a bit. So, do appreciate the help with participating in the polls. And like I was saying earlier, if you haven't already visited the resource library, please make sure you spend some time to take a look around and at least pull down all those different PDFs and documents and presentations just so you've got them. You'll probably end up really wanting them at some point when you're halfway through one of our processes or something. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow. And this will be the end of day 2 of the Innovation and Opportunity Conference, brought to you by the NASA SBIR STTR program. So thanks everyone so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
All right.